All right, everyone, welcome back to the second channel. We're glad to be here again, and this time we've got a short story from one of my patrons named Ian. Thanks, Ian, for your support, and I am happy to be taking a look at this. Under content warnings, Ian wrote, probably too verbose, with a smiley face. Very good. Um, so I don't think there are any actual content warnings to be aware of. As for notes, Ian wrote, first real attempt at writing a short story. It was meant to be more like a glimpse into someone's life, a specific moment in time, rather than a story with character and plot development, etc. It is not self-contained. I did not mean for it to have a beginning or an end, sort of like a picture of a character's interior monologue. Okay, interesting. I mentioned this in a recent second channel video, but I just read a collection by Lydia Davis, short story collection, and that almost kind of sounds like some of the pieces she wrote in there, so that's cool. But yeah, let's go ahead and just jump into it. And Ian, I want to thank you one more time for your support. Really, thanks a bunch. So, this is Swell. I will pause when I have commentary. The day is bright and clear, and the sun is rising. There is grass, and then a lighthouse, and then the sea. The grass is moist, adorned with little droplets, and scarred by frost. It is dense, but short. Pale green, the color seems to have been leached out of the blades. Sparsely scattered amongst the grass are carrot flowers and dandelions and daisies. They are clustered together in small circles, as if huddling to bear the biting cold. Okay, pretty good intro, actually. I like the imagery. I feel like we've got some unique language going on here. It does raise a question for me. I'm going to look it up right now because I'm not entirely sure. When do you use among versus amongst? Among us? Sorry, that was stupid. All right, let's see. Among is the more commonly used word, and it is considered more appropriate for use in everyday language. Amongst, on the other hand, is generally considered to be more formal or archaic. And that's from paperpal.com. So it sounds like there really isn't any issue. I guess I highlighted it because amongst actually just sounded a little awkward. And it seems like we're going for kind of an elevated tone just based on what we've read so far. And so amongst does kind of make sense in that framework. But I don't know, it just caught me off guard a little bit, maybe because it is so archaic. Let's see, dictionary.com says, overall, among is more commonly used in both American and British English. In British English, while amongst is acceptable in most uses, among is generally preferred. Okay, so, I mean, like, technically no problem with it, and maybe I could totally be nitpicking, obviously, but like, sparsely scattered amongst the grass versus sparsely scattered among the grass. Yeah, I don't know. Audience, let me know if you hear a difference there. But otherwise, I really like what we've read so far. I also liked this simile here about the flowers being clustered together as if huddling to bear the biting cold. That's a nice visual portrayed with some good figurative language. I like it. Fog, low hanging above the plants, blankets everything in a bitter embrace. From the grass is thrust a lighthouse, cutting through the chains of fog. It stands, Atlas, holding up the sky. Every once in a while a gust of wind shakes loose a petal or two. They fly, then fall, like Icarus to the sea. Down the shard cliffs, down the black rock, down, down, down. Then the sea, that gray expanse. White froth embraces the earth as the waves rain down in thunder. Below the lighthouse, below the edge, there is the sea, and there is the wind, locked in a vicious dance that goes on until time dies and the skies fall. The surface swirls, excited, and white caps burst like stars. Under chaos, there is life. So, one thing I want to note is that, and I'm sure you're probably aware of this, Ian, but, this obviously isn't going to land with every reader. I remember I was in a creative writing workshop in my undergrad, and there was one member of that workshop who really wrote with like very elevated, very poetic language. And personally, I really liked it, but um, pretty much all of my workshop folks thought that it was like too much, to the point that it was like too hard to understand. This, I don't think, is all that hard to understand. It's just a little like formal, I guess you could say. And like I said, that's not gonna do it for every reader. Um, and like I said, you're probably well aware of that, Ian. So just be aware. um, if you want this to land with a specific audience, great. If you want it to land with a more general audience, you probably just want to tone things down a little bit. But I think if this is what you want it to be, then it's really good, and it's resonating with me personally, and I'm sure a lot of other people will like it too. But general audiences probably, maybe, they're not gonna super vibe with it. So yeah, again, just kind of be advised. I'll also note, under chaos there is life. I don't know if you really need that phrase, to be honest. I kind of felt like it was implied in a lot of ways. I don't know. I could take it or leave it. I don't think it is bad, uh, but it does feel just like a tiny bit on the nose is all. So up to you. Um, I don't think it's detracting from the story in any way, though. I'll say that. Okay, then we have a section break. I've become trapped in my skin, waiting for time to decay the boundary between this life and the next, I muse as I walk forward. The ground is thick with rich copper needles and intermittent clumps of green, as if the earth were rusting. The soil is soft beneath my feet. There is a small smile on my face, only there for those who expect it. Excuse me. My eyes reflect the green of the leaves strewn around, and they smirk as well. Uh, your eyes smirk or the leaves smirk? You could be a little clearer with that sentence. I also wanted to point out, this sentence is a tiny bit long. Um, the fact that there are two verbs that follow the dialogue, you could simplify it. Yeah. But, I still understood, so that's fine. Yeah, just if you want to streamline things a little bit, I would divide this. Anyway. I enjoy this, my routine exercise in pseudo-philosophy and abstract meaningless. Do you mean meaninglessness? I don't know. I have a vague notion of time and death and other things, which I often string together with flimsy phrases and pretty words. There are many things I think about, but nothing which I grasp. Mottled with pale moss, trees shoot from the ground sparsely. There is a path I follow of ground, grass, and dried petals, of years and years of wear. This is my favorite path because I revel in the moment of anticipation that arises before the trees make way for the sea. The ocean is pale and muted this time of year, but the waves rage on tirelessly. I take off my shoes and step into the cool black sand. It grabs at me, in between my toes, but more out of care than malice. I like that. I like that visual, that metaphor, to say that the sand grabs at you. Because if you stepped into an ocean or a lake and you feel like the soft sand or the mud beneath you, then yeah, it does almost have kind of a grabbing sensation, right? And yeah, it's like it is kind of a caring sense. For me, I love the beach. I really like being at the beach personally. I love like the sound of the ocean, it's super therapeutic. And yeah, like sticking your feet in the water and just kind of letting your feet sink into the sand. I don't know. For me, again, very therapeutic. And so I think this sentence is like really apt. The wind picks up on shore now that there are no plants to buffer. The beach is like a bow. A bow? I'm not sure. I think bow. The beach is like a bow stretching on either side. There is a small cluster of jutting rocks to the west and a small stream to the east. In the middle there is just sand. This is where I will sit and think about time and death and abstract meaningless. There is no one around because the sky is gray and the clouds are angry and full and ready to burst. One thing I want to point out, I'm digging the syntax. Like, for the most part, these sentences are all just very clear and easy to follow. And like in part that has to do with their length. Most of these sentences are pretty short, but I don't know. It's like, this is something I've kind of just picked up recently, but clarity is like the most important thing. It's the very first thing you should be striving for in your writing, right? And then all the other good things will come just naturally as a result of clarity. Like in Ian's case here, good similes and good metaphors. Um, but yeah, this is easy to follow, and the story's all the better for it. Small streams of light slip through. This would be a good place to be with someone, but not to speak, to wallow in quiet tranquility and bask in the secret understanding that words would ruin the moment. Here is where the walls start to deteriorate, and I can leave behind our mortal realm to a place beyond my mind where I can steal a glimpse of truth, though I am not a spiritual man. It is a warm and fragile thing, flickering and inconsistent. It seems antithetical, but nonetheless a reality. Here is where memory rushes forth, brought forward by the smell of the salt stuck in my hair, or the feeling of the sand underneath my nails, or the omnipresent and omniscient ocean. It's kind of interesting adjectives to use to describe the ocean. Kind of neat. I am 10 years old again, because the sound of the gulls have willed it so in this place where time is plastic. Plastic. Sorry, I'm just thinking maybe rubber would be a better word, assuming I understand the intent of the metaphor. Maybe I don't, but yeah, just something to think about. I guess when I consider plastic, I usually consider like hard plastic, and that could just be me. And it sounds like, we're imagining time as something that is more flexible than it actually is, and so that's why I suggest rubber. Anyway, did I over-explain that? I don't care. Yes, I do. Here we go. The sky is distinctly warm and clear, but the waves are ice and rushing around me. The sun beats down on us, and I grasp her hand as firmly as I can, and the current draws us in. The water is in my eyes, burning, blurring. I see a wave before us, distorted and mountainous, trembling with might. I see its black and blue belly laid before me. I see myself within. Under, she whispers. The water falls upon us like thunder, and I cling to her. But I feel myself slipping away. There is a brief moment when I think it is over, but when we are ripped apart. Oh, but then we are ripped apart. I thrash and rage, but I am nothing. I am at the mercy of the tumbling beast. The world is black, and the sand races in spirals over my body, and my jaw is screwed tight, and the cold burns my skin, and all I can think is that I will never know what I will have for dinner. I am flung. I am disoriented, above the surface, spit out on the shore. The sea draws itself back. I do not remember what I had for dinner that day. That's kind of funny in a morbid sort of way. But I actually like that, because I don't know, it's like, I can't say I've ever really had a near-death experience, but, I hear about some people who do, and it's like, the things they think about are a little ludicrous in hindsight, and so in this case, it's like the speaker fearing that they will die. All they can think about is that, they won't have dinner that night. I laugh because it also reminds me of that sketch from I Think You Should Leave, where Tim Robinson thinks he's like going to be devoured by a monster, and his first thought is, well, at least I won't have to go into work tomorrow. And it's like crazy. It's crazy the things a person thinks about when their life is on the line. And obviously that's fictional, and I think this is fictional too. I can't say for certain, but anyway, it's like, it's very real. And like I said, it was funny in a morbid sort of way. Everywhere I look, all around me, is my life. Forwards and backwards, moments punching holes through the paper, through the clouds, through the walls. I have become trapped in my skin, waiting for time to decay, the boundary between this life and the next. Here is my favorite place to engage with time and death and abstract meaninglessness. Okay, so there we get the noun form. The previous forms were the adjective, right? So anyway, then we have another section break. For a while I sit until the first droplets begin to fall. The air swells with moisture, while the clouds sag lower and brush the tops of the cliffs. It is time to go home. The way back is much the same, only darker and more wet. The road that borders the trees lies like a great snake, where I see a car waiting, rumbling, its headlights slicing forward through the thin mist. It's another good verb right there. A lot of good verbs in this piece. In the front seat is my father, quietly squinting at the rectangle of light on the dashboard. It seems as though he has lost his glasses again. "Hello," he says. "How was your day?" "It was all right, I suppose." We have never really been much for talking, my father and I. We mostly just sit in comfortable silence and listen to music. "It was good," I answer. I'm confused. So this isn't in quotes, and I thought they had already given their answer up here. Yeah, it's a little confusing. He drives, I sit. The lights on the side of the road smudge together. I have forgotten my glasses as well. For a moment there is an itch in my throat and needles in my chest. I look forward, then down. I breathe in the stale air of the new car, and listen to the drone of the engine and the tires on the ground, and the whistle of the wind under the chassis. Somewhere back at the beach, a wave is breaking itself on the cliff's jagged edge, over and over, over and over and over. The rain is making its pilgrimage back home, the true monomyth of nature. No one is walking the stretch of sand that is greedily soaking up what it can to satiate its thirst. My father grunts softly, scratches his nose. I sit. He drives. So we arrive home. All is unchanged. Okay, interesting. That's the end of the story. I have thoughts. So one thing I wanted to point out in this last paragraph, there's some good showing versus telling here, like when it says, "I look forward, then down," or "My father grunts softly, scratches his nose, I sit." It's like I get a sense of for what the characters are thinking without anyone having to say it, right? And I love that. That's effective showing versus telling. Good job with that. It honestly, it's almost like Ian read the exact same books I did, like a month or two ago. How to Read Liter, or no, sorry, On Becoming a Novelist by John Gardner and Several Short Sentences About Writing by Verlin Klinkenborg. Because, yeah, I'm just seeing like a lot of the good stuff that those books teach about. I will say, I thought the imagery and kind of the scenes where action occurred, I thought that was a lot more engaging than like the speaker's ruminations, especially toward the beginning of this story after the first section break, where we have this big paragraph and there's some imagery, but then there's also just kind of an inner monologue for the speaker. And I thought the imagery was like a lot more effective than the inner monologue was, personally, in my opinion. Um, yeah, it's like I know this is experimental, but it kind of just has me itching for like a more traditional short story from you, Ian. And like you should understand that that comes from a place of personal preference too. It's like I mentioned, I think at the top of this video that I just read, Break It Down by Lydia Davis, and a lot of the short stories in there were pretty experimental and not very traditional. And I guess in a way, it's like I just kind of almost feel tired of the more experimental stuff. Um, that being said, Lydia Davis is an amazing author, and in those short stories, it was incredible how she was able to sound like so many different people. Because, like, yeah, like basically every story in that collection sounds like it's narrated by a different person, which is really impressive, like, really. Um, and as I mentioned multiple times with this story here, the narration was really very on point, in part like because of the syntax, and then just some really strong figurative language and engaging language. Um, as far as like interpretation, it sounds like the speaker at 10 years old was like on this same beach or maybe on another beach with their mother. That's who I'm assuming the woman is. I can't say for sure. and it actually kind of sounds like maybe their mother died in the water. Maybe I'm reading way too much into that. I don't know if I could actually point to any specifics in the text that would confirm that the mother actually died. And like I said, I'm only assuming that this is the mother. I don't think the story specifically confirms that either. But that's kind of the vibe I'm picking up. And if that's the case, it's another instance of like effective implication, right? The art of implication. Because that's kind of I think Verlin Klinkenborg said like implication is the greatest tool you have as a writer, because like it is kind of almost another case of showing versus telling, where it's like the audience doesn't want everything spelled out for them, right? They want to be able to infer some things because that'll make them feel smart, right? Um, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I give contradictory advice if I'm being honest. It's like, I don't know, in a mystery novel, of course, you want to lay out like all the details of the mystery, but even in a mystery novel, you want to be able to infer things about the characters, right? About maybe their past, or even about, maybe there's a shred of the mystery that's left more open to interpretation. Not in an, you have to be careful because like that could easily be unsatisfying for the reader. So yeah, it's tough. Writing is tough. But there is so much good stuff going on in this story. Um, it's very well written, really. I mean that, at least for my tastes, right? Maybe some people will read this and decide that it's not their thing, but as far as myself, I like it. I liked it. Um, And because I liked it, I find that I don't really have much more to say, if I'm being honest, and I'm sorry about that, Ian. Sorry if you were hoping for a little bit more than this, but I don't know, it kind of feels up my alley. In a lot of ways, it kind of feels like the writing that I'm sort of trying to emulate at this point in my writing career. Um, yeah, like, I don't know, I kind of feel like I should just end the video because I don't know that I really have much more to add. I'll reiterate one more time that I thought the tangible stuff was more engaging and stronger than more of the intangible stuff. And, you said, of course, that this isn't a traditional short story, and I can respect that for sure. Um, for what it is, it's really great. Yeah. Yeah. Like any changes that need to be made here, probably pretty minimal. I don't know. It's up to you. Um, Frankly, I'm just curious to see what else you might write. Like I said, I might like to see uh, a more traditional short story from you, beginning, middle, and end. But even though this was like uh, not quite that, it does still kind of feel like there's a beginning, middle, and end. Like this first section here is mostly imagery, and that's fine because I thought it was very well written. I thought it was poetic and engaging personally. But it kind of feels like the beginning is the speaker at the beach, and then the middle is actually their flashback where they, I think, are with their mother at the beach. And then the end is when their dad picks them up. And like we even have it in sections, right? It's like, I guess the beginning is sort of in the second section because there's nothing really story related that's happening here. It's just imagery in this first section, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, in section 2, we have kind of the official beginning and then the middle, and then last section, we have the end. So I don't know. Like I said, I really don't have much to say. This is going to be a short one. It was a short story, and there's nothing wrong with that. It told the story that it sought out to tell. And yeah, I'm impressed. Just remember that my opinion doesn't actually mean much. You can't trade this in for money or anything. So I do want to thank you one more time, Ian. Thank you very much for your support. Thanks for submitting this. It was a good read. And yeah, we'll leave it there. Ultimately, keep in mind, this is a rough draft.